Hello and welcome back to The Vegan Runner. Today we're heading back to Manchester to recap on my first ever marathon.
Manchester Marathon 2021. Let's go. Pace is doing a good job.
.2 miles, 2 hours, 57 minutes and 43 seconds, and an average pace of 6 minutes and 47 seconds per mile for my first ever marathon, and pretty much bang on the time I was working towards. Over the course of this video, I'll recap the day of the race, analyse the pace, and discuss the things that went well and didn't go so well in my first marathon, and offer some advice for those of you who are looking to run a sub-3 hour marathon or your first marathon. All of the different sections are time-stamped below, so feel free to skip to the parts that interest you, or just sit back and relax. I'll mostly be talking about the marathon day itself, and we'll leave reviewing the 80-20 marathon level 1 plan for a future video, but spoiler alert, it's a great plan, and if you're looking for something really well structured with a great variety of workouts, then you can't really go wrong with the 80-20 plan, which you can find links down below. And whilst you're there, check out the other links and ways in which you can connect with me and support the channel. Okay, let's get into the race recap. Let's start with nutrition. So about a week before the race, I upped my intake of beetroot as either a juice shot or in a smoothie via this crystal powder stuff from Beat It. Beetroot juice is one of the few sort of nutritional superfoods that has a fair bit of scientific evidence to back up the claims, which includes increasing the level of nitrates in the blood and then improving the blood flow to the muscles. Now, I hated the taste of beetroot when I first tried these, but after a while my taste buds have readjusted and I actually really like it now. Drinking this seems to work for me. Hard efforts definitely feel that little bit easier after loading up on beetroot juice, and I just noticed that breathing feels a lot easier too. I also had a beetroot shot about an hour before the race and just before the bag drop. Also, in the days leading up to Manchester Marathon, I made sure to eat as healthily as possible. Lots of clean foods, lots of dark leafy greens. I cut back on the beer a little and generally eat things that I know are going to do my body good. So the night before the race, I make sure I have my kit all laid out, then bagged up and ready to go, as well as organising my drop bag with the kinds of things that I'm going to need after the race. As a vegan, I can't always guarantee whether the goodies handed out at the finish line are going to be animal free, so I make sure to pack a couple of drinks and some snacks to tide me over whilst I cool down after the race. A couple of final pre-race prep things I like to do is to try and ensure I bank some sleep during the week leading up to the race. I tend to struggle the night before, as I'm usually a bit nervous and excited. This time though, I actually felt like I slept pretty well. I still woke up a couple of times during the night, but all in all, I sort of woke up feeling pretty well refreshed and ready for the race. In terms of the gear I decided to wear for the race, I went with the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 2, which is Adidas's latest and greatest carbon-plated shoe. It's very similar to Nike's Next Percent, and they're having a fair bit of success with the elites on the world stage at the moment. I wore these in my last marathon pace training session and they felt great, so I was pretty happy putting these on my feet. Now for socks, I went for these very well worn compress sports socks. They're pretty much at the retirement stage now, but I knew that they'd be comfortable. As for shorts, I went with these red Do shorts or DO shorts. They've got a really handy little front pouch, which I think a lot of these types of shorts have here for for a couple of things. So I put my salt tabs in there as well as a caffeine strip in there as well. And then it's got a really handy sort of side pocket as well, so I kept the gels in there as well. Now for a cheap pair of shorts, they're really comfortable. Highly recommend those ones. And then of course on top, I've got the Vegan Runners club top there, the vest. This is actually imbued with special Go Faster magic woven into the material. But seriously though, I love wearing my club colours. There was so much support out on the streets of Manchester and so many shouts of "Go Vegan Run."
Thank you. Cheers.
It really makes a massive difference, and if that was you out there shouting, then thanks so much. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. In fact, there was this one guy I was running with for a little bit. He asked me if I'd been to the London Marathon the week before, because there was someone in a vegan runner top there running behind him, and the crowd kept shouting out so much support for him that he said it started to do his head in. So personally, I think the universe is trying to tell him something, but he was a nice guy, and he even offered to hold my GoPro whilst I tucked into my first gel. He could see I was struggling trying to do it one-handed. So thanks for that. Yeah, so I was going to wear my heart rate monitor too as part of my 80-20 training. Now they recommend running the marathon at the top end of zone 2 to zone X. For me that's about 165 beats per minute to 174. But I completely forgot to put it in my bag. I wore it the day before at Bolton Park Run, which was a great leg loosener. A great park run. If you want to check out my video of that, you can go and see it here. But it was slipping at the park run, this heart rate monitor, and I ended up taking it off and putting it into the pocket of my shorts. Completely different pair to the ones I wore on race day. And I forgot to take them out, but hey ho. I didn't realise until we were sort of heading into Manchester on the tram that I didn't have my heart rate monitor. These things happen. Right, back to the morning before the race. I had a nice big bowl of porridge with jam and fruit. I find the mix of fast and slow release carbs works well for me. I had experimented with all of this on my long runs during the training plan, so I knew what to expect. The morning of the Manchester Marathon was pretty much ideal in terms of the weather. There was a little chill in the air, but otherwise clear blue skies and the promise of some sunshine in the forecast, which is a bit unusual for October in northern England. Now we were staying in Bury, just outside of Manchester. Fortunately, the planned industrial action on the Metrolink was postponed for that weekend, so we were able to get the tram into Old Trafford, and then it was just a short walk to the bag drop area. The organisation was really great at this point. There were already marshals on the course and plenty of signs showing everyone where to go, which is just like perfect for me, for somebody who doesn't know Manchester at all. Once the bag drop was sorted, I headed over to the pre-start area. I was in white wave, the first wave to start, and it wasn't too long until we were heading to the start line. We had a bit of a wait here. There was some kind of delay to the start of the race for some reason, but that worked out in my favour really. I really needed to use the loo. Like pretty much all runners before the race, I seem to need the loo like every 5 minutes, so I took the delay time to take care of that, and then when I came back, had a little warm up, and then we were getting going. Now at the start of the race, I positioned myself between two sub-3 pacers. There was one a fair bit out in front, and then another one who, you know, when I was standing there with the crowd, there was just right behind me. So my plan at that point was to start with the closest sub-3 pacer behind me, do the first half or so, and then push to the last sort of 5 or 10k, depending on how I felt. Now that isn't exactly what happened. I think in the shuffle to the start line, the sub-3 pacer behind me was pushed a bit further back as we were all kind of funneled over the line. And then the pacer ahead of me ended up like way out in front. So I decided to pace myself for the first mile at least, which I ended up running in 6 minutes and 47 seconds. This was a nice confidence booster, pretty much bang on target pace and bang into the rhythm of that 6 minute 52 second mile. And all was feeling pretty good.
Okay, so that's mile 1 done. 6:47, so pretty much bang on pace. Early miles, horse miles.
The second mile was a little quicker in 6 minutes and 41 seconds, and so I eased up a little bit in the third mile, getting a little bit closer to target pace in 6 minutes and 46 seconds. I grabbed some water at this first aid station, and although I wasn't like that thirsty, managed to put away about half the bottle. Staying hydrated I think is really, really important for the later stages of the race. Right, so that's the first few miles of the race done and out of the way. I was pretty happy with how they went, pretty much bang on target pace. I was happy that I hadn't got too excited and too carried away. I could already see around on the course around me that some people had gone out too fast and too hard and were pulling back already. So tricky to do when you're sort of full of those pre-race nerves and full of that adrenaline. You feel great for the first couple of miles. So I was happy that I was on just about target pace, and yeah, first few miles had gone. I got into that rhythm and I was being disciplined with my pace. Right, that's the first few miles done. Now it's your turn. Drop a comment down below. In your most recent race, how did you find the first few miles? How did they go for you? Did you go out too fast, too slow? Did they go to plan? Did the plan change? Let me know. So then I ran the next 3 miles in pretty similar splits, 6 minutes 42 seconds, 6 minutes 45, and then 6 minutes and 38 seconds. There was a little bit of downhill in that 6th mile, hence the slightly quicker time, but so far sticking pretty close to the target pace and feeling happy. The first 10k whizzed by in about 41 minutes and 42 seconds, and then I crossed the first timing mat in position 834. At the second aid station, I also grabbed another water and I took on a salt tab. The only thing worth noting here that didn't really go to plan was that I had a rough idea of taking a gel approximately every 4 to 5 miles. I'd packed 2 gels into my shorts. One I had eaten just before the race started. Don't ask me why, I wasn't planning on eating it, but it's just what I saw a lot of people around me doing, and pre-race nerves got the better of me, so I thought, hey, why not? I knew there were gels out on the course, but I mistakenly thought they were at every other aid station, so I was saving the gel in my pocket as a backup rather than having it at the 5th mile. And actually the first aid station stocked with gels wasn't until 9.5 miles, which is where I grabbed one from the aid station and had my first gel a little later in the race than I expected, around about the 10th mile. So this is definitely one area of marathon running I need to read up on a bit more and have a firmer plan in place for my next race. I don't think it affected me actually. I think it turned out okay in the end, but I definitely need a better plan for my next race, I think, because I was kind of like going, shouldn't there be, these aid stations? Where are these aid stations with these gels that I thought I saw on the map, and where are they coming? So those little doubts and things can have a kind of big impact on you if they end up, if you end up struggling later on in the race. But like I say, fortunately, it all turned out good in the end. So from here then, I get pretty metronomic with the pacing. I found the rhythm and had settled into the nice flow of the race. Mile 7 was a 6 minute and 44 second mile, mile 8 a 6 minute and 46 second mile, and mile 9 was a 6 minute and 42 second mile. And then in the next mile I did manage to find the aid station, as I mentioned earlier, that was stocked with gels, so grabbed one of those and then ran the 10th, 11th and 12th miles in 6:45, 6:46 and 6:38. It was around this point I caught up with the 3-hour pacing group who started ahead of me. I was feeling good and didn't really want to slow down at this point, so I knew I'd need to go a little quicker to get by them. This was a pretty large group and they were quite difficult to get past. There was a fair bit of weaving going on, so I ran the 13th mile in 6 minutes and 41 seconds, crossing the halfway point in 1 hour and 28 minutes in position 618. Checking in at the halfway point, everything was feeling good. It did dawn on me that there was another 90 minutes of running to go, but other than that, all was feeling well. Breathing was still relaxed, energy levels were good, and my legs were feeling strong. The weather was beginning to get a little bit warmer. It was clear blue skies and sunshine all around, and I think it was approaching 18 Celsius at this point, which seems unseasonably warm for an English October, but the warmth wasn't having an effect yet anyway. Mile 14 ticked by in 6 minutes and 43 seconds. Mile 15 was surprisingly the fastest mile of all, 6 minutes and 37 seconds. And that's despite a little bit of elevation, which Strava is telling me works out as a grade adjusted pace of 6 minutes and 31 seconds. Now, I'm not sure what happened here. Maybe I got a little bit excited. It was a long straight section of the course, but I don't remember kind of like putting my foot down. It might be that I compensated for the slightly slower, slightly uphill section by running the downhill in that mile a little bit faster. That's my best guess anyway, and I'm not sure. Mile 16 passed in 6 minutes and 45 seconds before heading into Altrincham, which seemed to have Mount Everest plonked in the middle of it, but that passed in 6 minutes and 44 seconds, along with mile 18 in 6:40, mile 19 in 6:39, and mile 20 in 6:45, passing the 30k mark in 2 hours and 6 minutes in position 441. Now, seasoned marathoners will tell you that a marathon is a 20-mile training run with a 10k race at the end. Basically, this is where most people are going to have issues if they haven't already, and it's at this part of the race that the runners generally, they will hit the wall. So that's basically where the body has used up its store of glycogen in the muscles and your body turns to fat as its fuel source. I was fortunate enough not to hit the wall. I think my relatively steady pacing, particularly in the early miles, put me in a good position, but at mile 22, the pace and the distance really did start to bite. My legs began to feel that little bit heavier, my hip flexors were starting to tighten up a bit, and it was getting a little harder to talk to camera. Mile 22 passed in 6:45 before my slowest mile of the race so far, mile 23 in 6:55. Down to the final 5k, just over a park run to go until the finish. Now, after the shock of seeing I was a whole 3 seconds behind target pace for the first time for the last miles, I doubled down and tried to hold on. This wasn't going to be pretty. Mile 24 passed in 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Then mile 25 in 6:51. I was slowing down but still ahead of target pace. 1 mile to go and a little bit of elevation. Mile 26 passed in 7 minutes, but I could see the finish, just a fifth of a mile to go. Just over 80 seconds of running left if I stuck to the same pace. I managed a sprint finish. I'm not sure you can call it a sprint finish. It was a sprint in my head, but not in my legs. But I crossed the line, paused the Garmin, glanced at the time. My first marathon, 2 hours, 47 minutes and 43 seconds. Did it. My long-term running goal and dream accomplished. Now, if you've never run a marathon before, there's nothing quite like the wave of relief, accomplishment, exhaustion, exhilaration that hits you on that finish line. It's like nothing else. I think it's the reason why so many of us come back for more. Now, people tend to talk a lot about the race itself and the prep beforehand, but very few mention what happens to your body once you cross the line, which in my case was to seize up like the Tin Man after a holiday on the coast. I could barely move my legs. My upper body, which throughout the run hadn't protested once, was now aching like I'd smashed out 50 press-ups on the spot. And my core body temperature was dropping fast and I almost immediately started shaking like a nervous dog. Fortunately, the race organisers were handing out alcohol-free beer, which went down an absolute treat and went some way to remedying the situation. And then I popped into the massage tent for a quick rub down, which was pretty brutal, but it seemed to do the trick of loosening up my legs a bit. Then it was over to the bag collection point, and fortunately I had put some water and snacks in the night before to quickly replenish the sugar levels before heading over to V-Rev in the northern quarter of Manchester for a really awesome beer, burger and chips. I don't need to tell you that went down pretty sharpish. So just a note on the course and the organisation if you're thinking of doing it next April. I found the whole thing to be really well organised, from before the race with the race packs and the information to the actual day with the signs and the aid stations. Now, given that we are still in some really strange times for race organisers with all the extra safety measures they have to put in place with COVID and all that kind of stuff, I think they did a really good job. Bearing in mind as well that there was industrial action planned for the Metrolink that wasn't called off until just hours before the race, I think they did a great job of keeping everything and everyone well informed of what was going on. There was a bit of an odd thing at the finish line. One of the products the organisers made quite a lot of fuss over in the days leading up to the marathon. There were Kind bars. They didn't seem to have turned up, at least not for the first wave of finishers anyway, but there were other things there as that was absolutely fine. So we had the Erdinger Weiss alcohol-free beer. There was a couple of CIS recovery powders and a couple of drinks by Tenzing. Nothing to eat though, but it didn't matter too much as I'd packed some stuff in my bag just in case. Now as for the course, it's pretty flat, but you will notice a couple of hills in Altrincham for sure. They're not massive, but if you're not expecting, or if you're expecting a completely flat course, they might throw you if you don't know they're coming up. The crowds were absolutely amazing on the course. I'm always amazed with events like this, that how many people come out and stretch themselves across, 26.2 miles and stand around for 6 hours or more cheering on other people and offering them drinks and sweets, etc. It's just amazing. So yeah, thank you everybody, thank you especially the people of Manchester. So, first marathon sorted, dream accomplished, and already new dreams and new targets are starting to percolate. Sub 240. But I think we'll leave it there for today. Thank you so much for watching, and please go ahead and do all of the things, like, comment, subscribe. And until the next one, be the best you.